Makers, I'm Kalila Reynolds, and welcome to another episode of Taking Stock Live. I'm joining you all the way from Miami this week. And no, that is not a flex. I did not fly out because of the hurricane or anything. This trip was pre-planned. And boy, what I had to go through to get to you this evening. I got locked out of our apartment. I locked out of the apartment with all the equipment. My computer is in there, tablets in there, ring lights in there. But where there's a will, there's a way. Once I have my phone, the show will go on indeed. And so that's why, stuff looks a little bit different than how it normally would look. And yeah, there in Mandeville, we still have no power. I left on Sunday. Today, what, Tuesday? I left on Sunday up to Sunday. We had no power. I checked with my family today. Still no power in our community in Mandeville. But the good news is that communities around us are slowly getting power back. And so hopefully we'll have power again at my house very soon. As for all of those who have been affected by Hurricane Beryl, our hearts, our prayers, and of course our efforts go out to them. A lot of efforts are underway in those areas most hardest hit in St. Elizabeth, in Clarendon, and other areas. It's not very far from where I live. And so we have been able to see the damage firsthand. On my street, there's a light pole down. There is another one very nearby on an adjoining main road. And personally, I just give thanks. I see a lot of people cussing JPS. I am not cussing, even though it's been a week, because I know that they're doing the best that they can. And for me personally, I give thanks that that's the extent of it for me. This is why we prepare. This is why we buy the hurricane supplies, so that in the event that electricity goes, you have your non-perishable foods that you can count on, and you have other supplies stored up. You have water stored up. And fortunately, we were in a position to do that. For those who are not in such a position, we're very grateful that efforts are underway island-wide to mobilize, that people have been volunteering their time, people have been giving what they can, and we certainly encourage more of that. We're going to be talking a lot more about Hurricane Beryl in tonight's show. We have a full show for you, looking at it from different angles: the economic angle, of course, the business angle. Later in the analyst will be looking at the companies that would have been affected. And then earlier in the show, we're going to be looking at the economic impact, as well as, what the recovery is going to cost. We have a couple of special guests talking about that. I want to encourage you to subscribe to the newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter, because we have quite a bit of stuff going out there. I also sent out a free download for our newsletter subscribers earlier today. So now let's take a look at what's coming up in tonight's show, followed by what's hot in business. And come on, let's get this money.
On this episode of Taking Stock, Hurricane Beryl swept through Jamaica last week, devastating 7 parishes and destroying millions of dollars worth of crops. Will this widespread agricultural damage trigger a surge in food prices? And what does it mean for our economy as a whole? Agriculture Minister Floyd Green and development economist Chris Stokes join us live to discuss. And the analyst weighs in on the latest market developments. Natural disaster insurance.
Here's what's hot, brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
Jamaica's $150 million catastrophe bond will not be used to cover damages caused by Hurricane Beryl. Beryl, which passed the island as a monstrous Category 4 hurricane, impacted the entire island but hammered Jamaica's southern coast, causing severe damage to Clarendon, Manchester, and St. Elizabeth. However, according to Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark, under the terms of the bond, Jamaica does not qualify for a payout. The bond was designed to provide financial protection in case of a Category 5 or very intense Category 4 storm such as Beryl. However, Dr. Clark said while Beryl was categorized as making a hit on Jamaica, the hurricane did not make landfall, which is required to trigger the CAT bond. The minister said Jamaica will use its contingency fund and natural disaster fund, which total 4.5 billion Jamaican dollars, to finance recovery efforts. He added that as damages are assessed, The government will draw on other sources to cover expenses. In the meantime, the NCB Foundation has launched a $300 million Jamaican disaster relief fund to support Jamaicans affected by Hurricane Beryl. The foundation said it will be working with other charitable organizations to help individuals and communities. Restoring homes and farmers' crops in the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Hanover, and Manchester, which were severely impacted, will be the fund's main aim. CEO of the NCB Foundation, Cherie Martin, said the fund will be established with an initial pledge of 20 million Jamaican dollars from NCB. The organization is calling on corporate and individual contributors to add to the fund. She said NCB will match all donations up to $150 million. Productive Business Solutions and Iron Rock Insurance Company were suspended from trading by the Jamaica Stock Exchange last week. The companies were suspended because their financial statements were late. The suspensions follow Edufocal and Equity Line Mortgage, which were both suspended and later resumed trading in June. This latest round of suspensions took effect on July 2. The audited financials of both companies are more than 90 days late. Additionally, Iron Rock's first quarter report is also more than 45 days late. Along with the suspension of their ordinary shares, PBS's preference shares have also been suspended. The Jamaica Business Development Corporation has signed a memorandum of understanding with macrolender Access Financial to help entrepreneurs access more money. The deal will see Access offering loans as high as 1.5 million Jamaican dollars to MSMEs across the agriculture, manufacturing, trading, and service sectors. The funds can be used for working capital support or to purchase fixed assets. There is a 3-year repayment period. No Place, a new social media app, is dominating the Apple App Store charts. The app has been described as if MySpace and Twitter had a Gen Z baby. Similar to its MySpace predecessor, No Place features customizable profile colors that reflect what they're listening to, watching, eating, doing, and feeling, as well as curated posts and a list of top 10 friends you can pin to your profile page.
Top 5 places to meet Richmond in Jamaica. Number 5, we're coming in at AC Hotel Lounge / Bar. If you go here, you'll meet a lot of nice professional men who have jobs within the corporate area, whether in business, finance, or governance.
So this was a pretty accurate video. He gave some good places, but he actually missed one. Shh. You want to know where? It's the Money Mission community. That's where all the money people go to talk about money and figure out ways to make even more money.
Welcome back, guys. Before we continue, let me know in the chat where you're joining us from this evening. What part of Jamaica, what part of the world? Ingrid said good night, checking in from Bull Bay, St. Andrew. Who else? We have Dwight from Spanish Town in the house. We got Kemoy in St. Elizabeth, but from St. Elizabeth, but currently in NYC. And guys, let me know when you tell us where you're from, especially if you're in Jamaica. Let me know if you have power still or if you have power yet. Antoinette is joining us from Arizona, 112 degrees Fahrenheit today. Jermaine is hailing all the way from China. Who else we got? Roswell saying good evening to all viewers. Scotty is over there in Kingston. And I saw as well, we have Nina in Spanish Town. I saw somebody make a comment just now asking if I flew up. Let me find out the comment. Where is it? Comment. I'm on my phone, guys, so it's a little bit different tonight. But somebody asked earlier in the chat if I flew out, and I knew somebody would make that comment. I knew it. I didn't fly out because of the burial electricity situation. It was a trip that was planned long before this, so that that's how come I'm not home today. But yeah, that's the situation. I knew somebody was gonna say that. So let me know where you're joining us from in the chat, and let me know if you still have any electricity problems. We have the minister on tonight, and it would be good to get notes of those communities who still have issues. So despite not making landfall, Hurricane Beryl swept through Jamaica and devastated some of the southern parishes, causing widespread damage to crops, infrastructure, homes. We saw a lot of roofs swept off, torn off of their properties. What's the extent of the damage done to businesses and to our economy at large? Here to talk about it this evening, we have Floyd Green. He's the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining, and he is also the MP for one of the worst affected constituencies. We also have with us development economist Chris Stokes. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, Floyd. Hi, Chris. I'm hoping my battery holds up tonight because, boy, it has been quite a week. Charging phone in the car and all this kind of stuff. So I'm with it, in the thick of it with you guys. So, Floyd, the agriculture sector took a massive hit from Hurricane Beryl. Do you guys have an estimate yet of what the cost of the damage is?
Yeah, so I would say we're still tabulating. We had gotten some preliminary figures, but that was very, very early days. As soon as the storm cleared by Thursday, our extension officers were out in the field, and I really want to commend them. Some of them who even had damages to their own property went out on Thursdays to start collecting information on farmers. But as you can imagine, there are some areas that were inaccessible, and a number of our farming communities and our farming roads that were inaccessible. So it has been a task getting all the information. Additionally, we had rains over the weekend. So, what Beryl didn't, the damage that Beryl didn't do, unfortunately, those follow-up rains did do some significant damage. So we're tabulating everything. I do expect that I will have that final figure sometime by tomorrow. It's definitely, by Thursday, when I got in the preliminary report, it was already past $1 billion. So it will be in excess of that significantly.
Easily, because I heard that, I think they said 90% of the banana crop has been destroyed.
Yeah, no, so it's wide ranging. So yeah, we had about at least 90%, definitely over 80% of our banana farmers were affected, and most of them suffered, unfortunately, complete loss. I mean, people still go out to see if they can salvage any fruit, but definitely about 90%, especially in parishes of St. Mary and Portland, because again, as you know, banana planting, they're very susceptible to high winds, and they're susceptible to 40 mile per hour winds, and we were far in excess of that. But outside of that, we've seen some other areas. Our greenhouse farmers suffered terribly from Hurricane Beryl, because Hurricane Beryl came with a lot of wind. So in Manchester, St. Elizabeth, I doubt that there are any greenhouses left standing, quite frankly. And a number of them have been damaged in Clarendon, in St. Catherine. Almost all greenhouses have suffered some damage, and very, very few, I would say less than 10% in that belt that was severely impacted, are left standing or functional. Outside of that, it did affect our vegetable lines. Again, wind and rain. It did affect our fruit trees. We saw a number of fruit trees being rooted out and displaced, and it did affect our livestock. So a number of our chicken farmers, especially our small poultry farmers, and they account for about 40% of our poultry industry. A number of them not only lost chickens, but they lost cubs. I did see a very sad situation in my own constituency where I had one farmer who his chicken house crumbled, and 1,500 layers were lost in that chicken house. So it's been right across our yam farmers in Trelawney and in Manchester, right across all our crop lines, unfortunately.
So we know that you're farmers, and coincidentally, you are the MP for which part of St. Elizabeth?
So Southwest St. Elizabeth, which is, St. Elizabeth is clearly our highest producing parish. It contributes about 14% of overall production, and of that, Southwest would lead the way. It stretches all the way from Bottom Southfield to Flaggerman, Newcomb Valley, Bacon, again, very heavy producing areas, all the way through Barbary Hall and over the bridge to Middle Quarters, part of Galleon Crawford. But outside of that, we also have some major fishing beaches like Calabash Bay, Parity, Galleon, and our fishers also suffer tremendously. So when they have storms of this nature, clearly they're unable to go to sea. Thankfully, the loss to boats is on the lower side, but we still see about 10 to 15% of our boats that have been damaged. But where they really would have suffered, a number of our fishers, the style of fishing they use are called fish pots. They go out and they put out their fish pots and then they go back for them. But a number of those fish pots would have been lost due to Hurricane Beryl. So it's significant loss on our fisheries as well.
I want to talk about some of the efforts to help these farmers and these people, because we know that it has to be devastating to lose your livelihood. But first, let me bring in Chris. Chris, welcome. It's your first time on the show.
It is my first time, and I'll try not to be offended that you don't have one of your fancy backdrops from my first visit.
Yeah, I'm traveling this time.
Good to see you.
Yeah, if you ever know what all I had to go through to get on the show tonight. But tell us a little bit about your background, since it's your first time with us.
Okay, but first, I'm from St. Mary, and I went 3 high schools in Jamaica: Calabar, Cornwall, and then Monroe, which is really my spiritual high school home. I studied finance at the bachelor and MBA level, PhD in economic development policy from UWI. I advised various small island developing states on economic policy. I was in banking for 15 years at a senior level between Victoria Mutual and NCB, and I now own and operate a neobank in the Northern Caribbean, a fintech-based financial institution, in addition to my work in economics. And also, as your viewers would know, I am a 4-time Olympian as part of the Jamaica bobsleigh team, which is sort of...
Yes, your season right now, you're excited. It's pure excitement with the Olympics coming up this summer.
But that's the summer games, but I am excited. Although with Sharika's injury today, it gave me a little pause as I was driving to come on. But,
okay.
Yes.
All right. So on to your other hat as a development economist. We've heard of the hit to agriculture, and Floyd just described the hit to the fisheries sector as well. What other sectors are impacted or have been impacted by Beryl?
Okay, let me say 2 things. When you say agriculture was affected, you would make an error to leave it there, because agriculture, food and non-alcoholic beverages is the highest weighted part of our consumer price index, which went up by 0.5% in last May. The subsector of that part of that whole measurement, food and non-alcoholic beverages, has to do with the vegetables, bananas and other grown provisions, which were the ones that were heavily hit, which is where the minister left it. But the issue is going forward from there is that this affects inflation, and inflation will affect interest rates, and interest rates affect all of us. This is it. So you have to connect them. All right. So you can't say, some man lost the pots. By the way, those pots are very.
And then the bad thing is, interest rates were just coming back down, or expected to come back down.
Mr. Byers was setting up with the monetary the committee to start to ease it down. He started to give some indication that he would let it down. Year over year, we're at 5.2% inflation, which is phenomenal, right within the target range. We were hopeful. By the way, that's a whole nother show.
We've been having that discussion.
Yes. Okay.
And now here we are with this hit to agriculture and the hit to the largest weighted set of items in the inflation basket, in the CPI basket. And so are you expecting to see inflation going back up?
You have to. You know what? One of the ironies in life, and one of the Prime Minister talks about building back better. We really have to think about what we are going to do in our new reality. And why do I say that? The explanation given for the spike in food prices in the May figure was drought, right? And the explanation that is going to be given for July is rain and wind. So the frequency of the variation in weather patterns is is going to affect how we think about setting up ourselves. Now, imagine, you talk about the folks who decided that, I don't have enough water, so let me build this facility and house my vegetables in it. And as the minister just said, those are all gone. Those are all gone. So we have to find a way forward that takes into consideration this tremendous variability in weather patterns, and this is our new reality, I have to say.
So, Minister Green, does this mean that we're going to have shortages of some of these basic food items?
I think it's too early to speak of shortages. Clearly, what we do our assessments and we look at the fall off, and then we explore if there needs to be any sort of supplemental provision, and we clearly do that to ensure that we don't have what you call quote unquote shortages. But
and by supplemental provision, do you mean importation?
We will have to explore all options, including importation. There's no other way, because it will take us some time period. So clearly, the first thing we do when we go out is to see what is salvageable. What level of crop can be saved. But the extent of the devastation is so wide, even in salvaging, there will be reductions in the supply. And that is expected. I went into a field today. They were salvaging some tomatoes. He clearly is getting out some, but it's definitely reduced numbers. He does expect he'll get another pick. But, the numbers that he's getting now would be cut in half in relation to what he would get before. So definitely in the short term, you are going to see some shortage in supply, which, again, to what Chris is speaking about, will drive up prices. And I mean, we've been working very, very hard, even despite the drought, to try and increase our production numbers. And we have been growing, and we have been seeing some increases, and our greenhouses have been providing that sort of backup in the drought period to enable us to continue to drive production. But again, now they have suffered a tremendous blow. So we will have to look to where we need to supplement. And again, we have already identified that, our vegetable lines are going to take a blow. The good news is that some of these crops are 6-week crops, right? And so our first thing, and the first thing that we do, is look to the areas that were least affected and to see if we could ramp up production in those areas. So do we have greenhouse structures that are still up and running and doing well, for example, in Trelawney, that we can utilize to quickly rebound the sector? So those are some of the things that we're looking at. And clearly, we're going to craft a program of support to help our farmers in that regard. The other thing that I would say is that our farmers are very resilient. So once you provide them with the opportunity to go again, they are willing to go again.
So what type of support are you looking at for farmers?
Yeah, so as we get in the assessment, we use the assessment to kind of guide what we put out. The good news is that over the years, because we know that, Chris said it, we know that some form of weather event will come and will impact our agricultural sector, whether it be drought, or whether it be rain, or whether it be wind. So we have been putting aside some funds to be able to respond. There is a reality, though. This is very early in the season. Normally, June isn't the time that we're looking to respond to major storms. It's normally further down. And based on the extent of this, I think we will have to have a sort of discussion with the Ministry of Finance to see how we can bolster what we would normally provide, and especially so that we can have some for when other events come during the season. So I will address Parliament next week, Tuesday, and I will outline in detail our program of support. And clearly it will be tied to where we are in terms of the amount of loss. But already I've said to the RADA team that, listen, we had started, because we now have a disaster management committee and a disaster risk mitigation committee. We had said, let us procure early inputs like seeds, fertilizer. So we are looking to start some distribution this week for those farmers who are significantly impacted, while we outline a major program next week.
I'm looking forward to your presentation next week. We're definitely going to be covering that. Do farmers get insurance? Because it is a very volatile industry. It's either drought, like you said, or rain and flood.
Yeah. So, insurance has been a challenge, but when I became Minister of Agriculture in 2021, and I went around and listened to the farmers, one of the things that they really asked for is could they get some form of insurance coverage. So we had met with GK Insurance, who at some times in the past had looked at various insurance products, whether around coffee. Some of them had worked, some of them hadn't worked. But we sat down and we worked out a parametric insurance scheme offered by GK Insurance called Weather Protect, which does provide some level of insurance for our farmers. However, the scheme that they outlined looked at agriculture and seasons, and clearly they did that to kind of minimize the risk. So you're not protected for the entire year. They looked at the seasons that were kind of most volatile and the season that you would need the most protection based on your planted cycle, and people could go out and get insurance, and that is still on offer. Unfortunately, again, and it's a discussion that I've already reached out to them for us to have, with the change in weather patterns, the season is changing. So normally you may not require protection in June, right? But now you do, and you require protection not just from drought, but you require protection from rain events, from wind events. So I have met with another brokerage as part of our 25 by 25 push by CARICOM to see if we can have a year-round parametric scheme that can help our farmers. So that is work in progress, but there is a option, a product on the market that farmers can access now. And some farmers did access it last year. Some farmers did get some reprieve when they were, we incentivized them accessing it. So we paid for them to start the process. And some farmers did get reprieve in November when we had that weather event.
Well, that's good news. That's good to hear. Chris, speaking of insurance, what are your thoughts on Jamaica not being able to access that catastrophe bond because the storm technically didn't make landfall?
Okay, so we weren't able to access it, or on the Beryl, we don't have the option of accessing it because of an air pressure condition in the agreement, right? Now, whether or not we would have wanted to access it is another thing. And why do I say that? The protection that Minister Clark has put in place is layered. So it starts with your own funds, your own two buckets of funds that we have put aside, which is like self-insuring. Then there is insurance. Then there is funds that are available from the IMF. And then there is sort of the stop all in the worst case condition of this, the catastrophic insurance. No, it's not something that we didn't get to access it because a case could be made that this is not the time to access it. And it doesn't matter if it comes at a cost. All right, so you almost want to reserve it for the worst case scenario on the thinking that the other things on the higher layers will get you through until and unless you need something of that magnitude. So, I hear people saying, well, it's a failure in design or so, and I think it's to purpose. I don't know the details of the instrument, but I would expect that it would be something, if we're going to go for that kind of money, 150 million US, I believe, it would have to be something that that's a bad hit after completely exhausting our other resources. Floyd said something else that is very important. It's still July. It's still July. God forbid we may have 2 more. We may have no more. But you part
knock
of
on wood for that one. God forbid, indeed. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So I think the structure and the thinking behind the how we plan for these events is good. Now, is it enough? Should the conditions be different? You can always debate that, but the intention and the actual implementation of a layered structure to protect us against these adverse events is a good thing that can be improved. But we ought to be happy as a country, and Jamaican people like to beat upon ourselves. But this is a good thing that we have.
Based on what's been described so far, it seems like we're covered based on everything with all the other instruments that you mentioned. But we'll know for sure once all the estimates are out. I heard Minister Tufton from Health saying $1 billion damage to hospitals and health facilities. Minister Green here says by tomorrow he'll have his estimate, and then there are other areas as well. So we don't have the full estimate yet. We don't know yet how much money we're going to need. And we're hoping, I think it seems likely, Minister Green, I don't know if you would agree with this, that the existing facilities, bond aside, will cover the damages that we have so far?
So let's put it this way. The good news is that we have been managing the economy in such a way that I think we can look within. And the additional funds and the additional coverages that have been put in by Minister Clark and the team at Finance, goes a far way in ensuring that we are able to respond, and we're able to respond in good time. So, I think Sir Stokes dealt with it perfectly. It is a layered approach, and it is a strategic approach that at each layer, it does speak to the sort of extent of the event, right? So clearly at this layer, we're definitely in the billions of dollars. It will definitely mean maybe some moving around. But I think at the end of the day, we will be able to respond, and we will be able to respond effectively to lead the recovery effort in the shortest possible time.
All right. Thank you so much, Minister Green. Thank you, Chris Stokes. We appreciate your presence, and we look forward, Minister, to your presentation in Parliament next week.
No problem. Anytime. Good to see you, Chris.
Take care now. All right, now. Bye-bye.
Okay. So just before we go to our poll question this evening, did you get a chance to check out our final installment recently of Ask Mike? If not, here is a look at what you may have missed if you didn't see it.
You've grown over the last 5 years, and now you want to scale up the growth, right? So what you need to do is look at the routines you had, the attitude you had, the enthusiasm you had, the fire in the belly, the hunger you had when you first started, right?
Yes.
And double down on all of those things. And you have to say to you, and then I mentioned this in the previous question. You have to say, okay, how did I get here? I got here by being smart and creative. That's how I got here. So now that I've gotten here, I have to make sure I double down on that, right? So I want to build a culture in my organization of people who are solving problems by thinking, right? Yes. So I got here by being smart and creative. If I want to scale this business, I have to make sure I scale it with people who are like-minded, okay?
That's a clip from Ask Mike with Michael Lee Chin, mentoring one of our community members in the 4th installment of Ask Mike. You can check that out on the community or on this platform right here on YouTube. Go check out the final installment of Ask Mike. Time now for our poll question. How did Hurricane Beryl impact you or your community? How did Hurricane Beryl impact you or your community? You can take this poll in the community tab here on Facebook or over on Twitter, or you can just type your comment in the chat. A, you had significant damage to property. B, utilities were down during the storm. C, you're still without light or water, like me. D, I was not directly affected by the hurricane, lucky you. Or E, other, leave a comment. How did Hurricane Beryl impact you and your community? Take that poll on Twitter or on the community tab of the YouTube channel. You can also leave your comments here in the chat. All right, so remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so just yet. Up next, we've got your market recap, and our analyst is standing by.
After a shortened trading week due to the passage of Hurricane Beryl, the JC Combined Index was flat last week. 120 stocks traded across the main and junior markets for the week ending Friday, July 5, 2024. 48 made gains, 62 lost value, and 10 stayed the same. 63 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, valued at $166 million. Edufocal was the week's most traded stock. It took up 23% of market volume with 15 million shares trading. The stock lost 4 cents to open the week at 49 cents. Wigton traded at the second highest. The stock lost 4 cents to open Monday at $1.07. And the Jamaican rounded out last week's most traded with 7 million shares changing hands. The stock gained 5 cents to close the week at $3.14. Now let's see who had the biggest gains for the week. T-Tech was the market's biggest gain, up 15% to close the week at $2.39. Medical disposables and supplies was the week's second biggest gain, also up 15%. And Margaritaville was up 13% to close the week at $15.45. On the losing side now, JMMB 8.5% USD was the week's biggest loser. The stock lost 15% open Monday at $1.06 US. Cygnus Real Estate Finance was down 13%. Over on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, the composite index lost 11 points or 1% last week. Massey was the most traded stock. The stock lost 7 cents to open Monday at $3.95 TT. National Flour Mills was the biggest gain of the week. The stock was up 4% to start the week at $2.14 TT. And the losing side, GK was down 8% to open Monday at $3.30. Over in the US, the Dow Jones was up almost 1% last week, while the S&P 500 was up almost 2%, and the Nasdaq gained 3%. Over at the pumps, gas prices were up $2.86 last week. Meanwhile, regular diesel was up $1.60, and low-sulfur diesel went up by $1.10. In foreign exchange, it took an average $157.25 Jamaican to purchase $1 last Friday. That's 96 cents more than the week before. Meanwhile, it took an average $121.71 Jamaican to purchase $1 Canadian. One British pound cost on average $200.45 Jamaican, and you could buy €1 for $171.99 Jamaican on average. Finally, on the crypto markets, Bitcoin prices were down 6% over the past 5 days, trading at $56,221 US on Monday, while Ethereum prices fell 9%, trading at $2,984 US on Monday.
To step up social media marketing for your business, get ready for the Summer Social Splash. Be one of the first 10 companies to sign up and get 60% off our influencer promotion package featuring yours truly. I'll come to your business and highlight your product or service to over 300,000 followers on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. But only 10 spots are available, and it's first come, first serve. So don't wait too long to book this special offer. It's 60% off for the summer. Contact business at moneymediaja.com or call 876-498-6490 today. Let's get this money.
Disclaimer: this is not intended as financial advice. Please consult a licensed financial advisor before making investment decisions.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Let me take a few more comments before we introduce our analyst for this evening. Can you pull them up for me, please? So C. Paul Hurl on Instagram says, supply is low, supply low, demand high equals higher inflation. Yep, absolutely. That is what we're looking at. Kevin Lawrence, 2966 says, I started planting back my seedlings this morning. I dread prices in the next few months. Oh, me too. I don't want to see what it looks like in the next few months. What else do we have? Ibrook says Southern Manchester has all the issues you can name, no electricity or connectivity or water. Yep, that's exactly what I was experiencing. We got back water on Saturday and then it went again by Sunday, or is it Friday? I think we got back water Friday and then by Saturday it was gone again. And then the bad part is we have a water tank because Manchester, Mandeville notoriously has water issues. And so a lot of people have water tanks, but the tank needs electricity to run. So we have water stored in this big tank and can't access it. Raquel says Penfield in St. Andrew, no light. Ooh, in St. Andrew, wow. Never lost anything personally, Raquel. So you don't live in Penfield. Christopher says, with climate change likely contributing to terrible storms, we need a plan to build a resilient economy. Absolutely. We have to plan for the worst because the worst is here. They said that this year is going to be one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. And it started with a bang because Beryl is just B. We're just in July. We're just at B. And we're already here with Beryl. All right. So in the meantime, keep your comments coming in and let us know what you think of our poll question. How did Hurricane Beryl affect you? Right now, let's bring in our analyst, David Rose, business writer at the Jamaica Observer and Taking Stock regular analyst. Hi, David. Good evening.
Night, Kalila. Oops.
Good to see you. So we've got a few things to chat about today. There's the impact of Hurricane Beryl, of course, felt throughout several sectors. We're going to look at how the stock market, how the market reacted to Hurricane Beryl and some of the impacted companies. So what do you have for us first?
So I guess we can just, look at the impact to the market. So I can't bring up my laptop right now, but if you took a look last week, so last week of June, going to June 28th, so that would have been June 24th to 28th, you saw a significant amount of value traded in the market. On July 2, which should have been, the day before Beryl is supposed to arrive, you saw literally a very muted, stock market for the day. What do I mean by that? You saw very little trading. And when I mean little trading, let us say you probably see net stock trading for the day. You probably saw a lot less, and even the stocks that were trading, you probably weren't seeing trades of more than $1 million in value for most stocks, and that was on Tuesday. Thursday, similar thing. That would have been influenced by the fact that some persons would have been out light. So coming into this week, there's still a hangover of Beryl in the sense that some markets have been closed last week, Thursday, and then persons are coming back online or sorting out their lives accordingly. So from a stock market perspective, you're seeing a reduction in trading value. Key point, I didn't say volume because that's an entirely different part of the equation. The value traded, dollars and cents, that's significantly down. And if you look at just the week before, you're even going back even a year, it's an entirely different story. So that just show you that a hurricane in this case, based on what happened, would have put persons in a little bit of a distracted spot alongside the impact of not having electricity, because while we can still contact our brokers via email and so forth to put in orders, for many persons, if you don't have light, you're not going to be talking to your broker about stocks. You're going to focus on, hey, I need to go charge my device. I need to go take this tree off my house or get my road open.
Exactly.
So that's from a stock market perspective.
I think about a company like, said, Jamaica Producers, and we hear, how much the banana industry took a hit. They produce St. Mary's bananas. Can you take a look at perhaps individual companies that are listed that might have been affected?
So there are different parts of the spectrum, Kalila. So let me give some context, right? So for some companies, such as, your Grace Kennedy, your Lumber Depot, Dairyman, those distribution companies, separate. Those companies are in distribution space and manufacturing space, or even just regular retail or hardware space. They saw a significant uptick in business, over the 2 days before Beryl, and in turn in the subsequent days afterwards as a result. What do I mean by that? So PriceSmart, person said that PriceSmart had, they know PriceSmart that packed, and that's for Riddles. And remember, they expanded PriceSmart to have an upstairs, and it's still a choke point. Like if you went to Google Maps, you would have seen that it was an entirely red road, which was the Riddles around PriceSmart. Even the PriceSmart is on the JSE, they distribute a lot of Jamaican-based company products. So your some CPJ products, some Grace Kennedy products, probably some Honeybun products, but you get a picture. Supermarkets as well, were empty. Like you saw memes on Instagram or on social media of, nobody buying the wheat bread, but you still saw the shelves were empty. So if you're in manufacturing or distribution, those company spaces, you had a grand time last week in the sense that for you, your inventory sold off like wow. You're struggling to just meet up with the demand for persons in the marketplace. And now some of your same clients can potentially pay you down earlier, your receivables, which you can take that same cash to put to other uses. So that's just to kind of show you that from the food manufacturing hardware space, like they had a pretty good time just because of the nature of what a hurricane requires in terms of a reaction. And we're
I
now
hear
seeing in
ice
this,
is, I hear ice is one of the hottest commodities right now, David.
it
Ice
is
selling
bar,
out everywhere. Richie
it's a
went to
no,
buy ice and they said you have a maximum of, I think, 2 bags per person for ice, so he made the receipt buy one.
no, but it's a bartered commodity now, and that's
Mhm.
just the we no longer have a ICE-listed company, JSC. When I that's the invest in the JSC, there's a Montego Bay company that used to be listed in the ICE space, no longer the JSC. But yeah, post hurricane, you're seeing persons purchase products carrying St. Elizabeth and other affected areas on the south coast. So in the food space, like it's mixed with respect to like your general insurance. Key point: general insurance. A lot of people confuse this, but let me clarify. You have life and health companies, life, health, and pension, your life insurance, your health insurance, the persons that manage your pension fund. Those are life, health, and insurance companies. An example: Guardian Life Limited, Tragicor Life Limited, right? General insurance companies are the ones that deal with most of the general associated risk that we tend to focus on when it comes down to insurance companies. What do I mean by that? So your Advantage General, your Guardian General, GK General, in terms of motor, property, maritime, fire, liability, those are your more associated insurance companies that most people should interact with in a sense, because you do need motor insurance there on the road. Whether you buy it or not, or actually renew it, that's up to you, but most people interact with those companies. Their impact is yet to be determined, and it's two sides of the coin. And let me explain that. So earlier I mentioned, most persons should, keyword should, interact with a general insurance company because by law you're required to have motor insurance. But we've seen from a couple of years ago from different media publications that they check TAJ records. Let us say there are 1 million persons on file registered on TAJ with vehicles, right? You're probably seeing 500, 600,000 drivers with insurance and the Insurance Association of Jamaica side. So that's to show you that even though motor insurance is mandatory, you still have that level of, I should say, non-participation to use motor insurance. So it's not likely going to be the similar case for property insurance. On the property side, I've heard it before, even Garden Holdings Limited CEO Ian Shinapua said that Jamaica is underinsured. I recall at a general accident AGM, Paul Barnaby Scott, PB Scott, mentioned how Jamaica is underinsured related to Trinidad in terms of insured assets. So it's kind of hard to really gauge that impact because I recall even in prior storms or flooding events, some insurance company said, hey, spaces that persons would have seen the most damage or destruction were not really insured by the insurance companies, in this case, general insurance companies. So for some persons, they would have contacted insurance companies last week, but that's for those who had light. They're likely to see more of the claims coming in over the next 2 weeks. A person is assessed, determine damage, and so forth. But it's likely you're going to see some level of increase in claims, or in this case, insurance service expense by your general insurance companies during the quarter in Jamaica, and to an extent in the Eastern Caribbean for companies that have Eastern Caribbean exposure. So, for example, Guardian Holdings Limited has a decent presence in Eastern Caribbean, alongside general accident, which is exposure in Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados. So that's why I say it's a little bit mixed because most of them are just associated on the south coast. But in Kingston, for example, the most of the persons complaining about was probably some damage to cars or just minimal levels of damage. But it's not like you're hearing houses, destroyed, roofs gone, like as you hear in St. Elizabeth. So that's why I say it's a very mixed, situation where you can't really determine as yet whether have been the claims coming first, and behind the IAJ side, Insurance Association of Jamaica, to really understand that level of impact. So that's from the general insurance company side.
I know the bad thing, David, is that we were already reporting that insurance rates are going up. And now you have a disaster like this, giving them more justification or more reason for wanting to raise rates even further.
Well, there are two ways insurance companies make money, Kalila, right? So you have underwriting income, right? Which is the insurance company collects a premium, pays out expenses. What you left behind is either a profit or loss. So your underwriting income, that's one part of the way insurance companies make money. The other way is through investment income. So they invest into stocks, bonds, different kind of assets that bring in income, which affords them the ability to pay claims and remain profitable. With respect to the motor and property insurance side, let me just give some relevant context so that we can all appreciate why insurance companies in this case have increased rates or premiums so much over the last 2 years. On the property side, right? What you tend to realize is that most insurance companies in Jamaica don't carry all that risk on their proprietary books. What they will do is that they'll insure it with another particular reinsurer, right? So basically, the insurance company collects, let's say, $100 worth of premium from you, right? They probably cede $80, $90 of that money to a reinsurer. So based on the agreement is structured, if there is a destruction of our property, for example, let's just say it's no longer deemed suitable to live in or experience substantial damage from an earthquake or another natural disaster, the general insurance company probably would pay, just say, $3 worth of $3 of that claim. Sorry, $30 of that claim, and let's just say the reinsurer pays other $70 worth of the claim. So most of that risk is brought over to the reinsurer side. What has happened is that due to a variety of different events, inflation, reduction in reinsurance capacity, and so forth, what has happened is that reinsurers have looked at the region and said, hey, you guys are pretty risky, expensive, and so forth. We're going to reduce the capacity to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
What that meant was, for the general insurance companies here in Jamaica, they would have had to increase rates to account for that high risk on their books. Because remember, Kalila, a property that have cost, let's just say, $20 million back in 2020, it's already by that $36 million now. You have to insure the property for its higher value. And at the same time, you have to account for the fact that, hey, you have less capacity. So let's just say the burial caused much more destruction in Kingston in particular than expected, then that reinsurance, arrangement will be critical to, ensuring the company remains solvent and doesn't go under. So for those who
with
don't
a
remember,
more active hurricane season, it's higher risk.
exactly. So the reinsurers increase the premiums and our insurance companies passed on to the customer. At the end of the day, their business they still have to be profitable. So for those who don't remember, Dial Group, they took a nasty term at Hurricane 2005, largely in the Cayman Islands, and they went under. So for general insurers, they need to charge appropriate premiums and business to remain solvent. Because remember, once the event that can trigger a claim is met and meets the other conditions of a contract, the insurance company should pay you out. Key point, should. I never said that they will, should. It's a conditional situation. On the motor side, here's probably motor side now. With motor, we just drive terrible. No, that's the simplest way to say it, Kalila. So
I think if you can drive in Jamaica, you can drive anywhere in the world.
No, I agree there, but let me give some context, right? So on the motor side, here what happens. Most insurers have something called a loss ratio, right? That would be your claims divided by your premiums, right? For most general insurers, their loss ratios surpass 100%, which means that their claims surpass their premiums that they bring into the business, right? After accounting for investment income as well. So basically, what that means is motor is a business that doesn't bring in any money for most general insurers in Jamaica. So basically, general accidents, 2018 Alta Financials, before they moved into Trinidad and so forth, you would see going back over the years, they never made money on motor insurance. And here to other motor insurers, it's a similar situation. What used to be, or saving grace was that property insurance used to be so lucrative that as a result, it could have subsidized to an effect the motor losses. But as I pointed out earlier, on the property side, what has happened is that reinsurance premiums have gone up, people are struggling to pay, and the insurance companies are stretched in terms of how much more they can push their customers. And on the flip side, the loss ratio of most insurance companies has gotten higher because of inflation. So a part that would have cost $100 to replace, it's about $150 to replace now. So the accident happened probably January. You're setting the claim now in July for this argument's sake, and that part you're planning to just allocate $100 is now $150. So the loss ratios have gone up for most insurance companies, and as a result, that's why you've seen double-digit increases in motor premiums this year. So even though you have been good, not got any accidents on your due diligence and everything, the pool associated with motor insurance book or insurance book, has gotten riskier and more costly. So that cost has to be among the remaining clients on that book. So that's where this context in insurance matters. So the hurricane being very active is a problem because there's increased claims and payouts, but at the same time, it potentially could mean higher premiums next year when next year renewals come up. So this is just all to give context as to why insurance is such a very dynamic business. It's fun when things don't go, when you don't have any claims. It's another thing when those claims come much more expensive and more frequent. And then the third side, which is agriculture-based businesses, the ones I can think of right now are your GK and Spurtree. From that perspective, depending on where they source their products, let us say they source most of their products from St. Elizabeth, for example, that can be a problem because in St. Elizabeth, they're still right now trying to
I didn't
clear
even
the
think
roads.
of Spurtree. Spurtree is right there in Manchester.
Well, that's Spurtree Hill, but for sure, Spurtree is from St. Thomas and other parishes, but in St. Elizabeth and the South Coast, the disruption in terms of supply routes, the potential damage to crops and all those other things can in turn mean a lower production and actually lower revenue. And in case of GK, there's also the other side of the equation that for some of their suppliers, they might not be able to supply GK with the same products at the moment, which might mean those products come available in the supermarket. Or if they do, or if they are in the supermarket, they're going to come at a higher cost. So these are some of the perspectives of how a hurricane impacts different businesses differently, because on part of the food side or retailer side or distribution and manufacturer side, they saw a lot of products last week because of the preparation and post-hurricane damage. Insurers is a mixed, general insurers is a mixed situation. And on the agriculture side, we're seeing, an estimated $1 billion worth of damage in lost crops and products. And as I pointed out, that supply shock can lead to higher prices, which, can feed into potential impacts on how the BOJ assesses its potential rate cut in the market. So all these things feed back into each other, and which is why people need to appreciate that I think anything happens to the overall economy, or even just a significant pressure like St. Elizabeth, it can ripple effects across the rest of the spectrum.
Absolutely. So before we go, David, I see some people asking in the chat about today's breaking news of AS Bryden acquiring 45% of CPJ. Doreen says AS Bryden bought CPJ from Mayberry Investment. I saw, were there other comments as well? Saw a huge trade on CPJ today. Could you explain? That's Javon asking. So what's the update? CPJ and AS Bryden.
So that was quite the trade. Like, I was doing some work, I logged into JSON, I'm like, wait, it actually happened. Like, I just did a big trade, I'm like, wow, the day has come when that acquisition of CPJ has taken place. So earlier today, we'd have seen 492.17 million shares of CPJ traded in the market at 1:21 p.m. or 32 trades. That was worth 5.17 billion with a capital B Jamaican dollars, or $32.82 million US. So what does this mean? Couple things, right? So first thing is CPJ is now going to become an associate of AS Bryden. And because AS Bryden is a subsidiary of Seprod, CPG will now in turn become a subsidiary of an associate of Seprod. But the story doesn't end there. AS Bryden intends to acquire more shares in CPJ, subject to the fact that they want to, or likely are going to do a mandatory offer or takeover bid for the remaining interest in CPJ. So they
Who
intend
owns
to
the remaining interest? The CPJ own it. So they acquired 45%. Who owns the other 55%?
So about 30% is still held by Anthony Markhart's holding companies, Sportswear Limited and Wave Trading Limited. Those are two St. Lucian IBCs. And then the remaining interest is held by multiple other shareholders, just like you and me. So on the markets, I can confirm that Onyx Investment Limited, as a company controlled by Tom Tyler, they sold all their shares. Ho Choi Limited sold all their shares. PW Bamboo Holdings Limited, which is Chris Berry's holding company, he sold all his shares. And we also hear that MJE, Mayberry Jamaican Equities Limited, sold all their shares as well. So who are some of the sellers to AS Bryden today, and also Sportswear and the Wave Trading also some of their shares to AS Bryden as well. But the remaining largest shareholder is really Markhart's holding companies at the moment. So
if they were to try to gain a majority, it would likely be getting Markhart himself to sell some of his shares.
It's likely that, well, we're not likely going to be told everything, but it's likely that there's an additional agreement in place for AS Bryden to acquire the remaining interest that Markhart has. So for prior deals, for example, Derriman acquiring the majority stake in CFF, the Mexican Discovery Group acquiring the remaining majority stake in Dolphin Cove, there are lockup agreements whereby that party who owns those shares cannot sell to anybody else. They can only sell to the party that they've signed that agreement with at a particular price. And with Seprod and AS Bryden's AGMs being on Monday and Tuesday, this being July 15 and 16, we can ask these questions, because if it is that there's a lockup agreement already with Markhart's remaining shares, then it's likely that we're going to see AS Bryden have 75% of CPJ within short order. In terms of the company being delisted, that would still come down to what stake AS Bryden has after the takeover bid has been completed. What do I mean by that?
Right, because the minimum to be listed is 20% has to be listed.
Well, it depends, but the way it is expressed is usually at least 100 shareholders should own 20% of the company. So once AS Bryden surpass 80% and there are no other associated separate parties that are questioning CPJ, then CPJ could remain listed on the JSC. But as I said, it all comes down to how that remaining takeover is done. We're not sure about the potential lockup agreements with Markhart's holding companies or other majority CPJ shareholders. But it wouldn't surprise me if they want to take CPJ private and restructure it in a way they see fit in terms of way forward to grow it into a new business or into a bigger business.
Interesting.
Because
Very
CPJ,
interesting. And keeping in mind as well that AS Bryden is a regional company, not just a Jamaican company. They have a regional footprint.
Guyana, Barbados, Trinidad, and now Jamaica.
Did we see any impact on the trading prices of Bryden's or CPJ today?
So I was trying to sell some AS Bryden shares today, and luckily I got it sold at $38.99. Pretty good deal for me. But the price would have gone up today from last check. It was around $39. And with respect to CPJ, it would have gone up today to close at $10.50 per share, which would have been the share price that dominated the day basically. Tomorrow, we're potentially likely going to see some level of increased trading in CPJ and some level of increased trading in AS Bryden. And keynote, tomorrow is the ex-dividend day / record date for AS Bryden's dividend, which is to be paid on July 29. So if you bought AS Bryden shares today, you're going to get the dividend come month end. And fun fact, when the AS dividend is for persons who have AS Bryden, set up a US dollar mandate so that that dividend goes to a US dollar bank account. There are companies and JS that pay US dollar dividends, but the JSC has not done a good job in educating persons. So it's about secondary mandate. So that US dollar dividends go to US dollar bank account, are not converted to Jamaican dollars when they hit their bank account directly with their mandate in place. So that's information everybody to appreciate. But one thing I can say, Kalila, the junior market is doing its job as intended. What do you mean by that? It has given a platform for companies to find someone else to take the company forward to a different progressive stage. Because you have all these funded companies, the founders are there, but the kids are not involved in the business, probably don't have an interest in the business. And because the stock market is there and these companies have this exposure from a public standpoint, you have these potential buyers or companies that look in and say, hey, we see value in you to grow you further, just take a majority interest in you and move it to the next stage. So, for example, German acquired CFF, in 2 different transactions up to 2017. We saw where, it would have been the Mexican Dolphin Discovery Group acquiring that stake in Dolphin Cove. And also, you would have seen GK purchasing a stake in Spur Tree just back in April, an associate stake. And, we know they're likely to acquire more shares in the future. I'm just looking back to see if there are any of the Jamaican companies I'm forgetting. But you kind of get a picture of Kalila in the sense that the general market has done its job to create that space of companies to have new owners who can step in and say, hey, we can take it over and make the company move forward, and you don't have to be worried. Because that's one thing that a lot of company owners, kind of have issues with, in the sense that when it's time for them to step down, they probably don't find someone who has their kind of tact or tactical structure, or strategy to move the company to the next level. At the same time, it's one thing to be a good leader, it's another thing to have capital. So this, deal, really represents a good talking point of the junior market, which is now 15 years old.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw Learn, Grow, Invest commenting, agreed, the role of the junior market. We're going to leave it there for this evening, David. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate all the updates on everything. Finger always on the pulse. Thanks again.
You're welcome, Kalila. Take it easy, everybody.
We'll take our final break and come back with more of your comments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by JMMB Group, your best interest at heart.
I see you, waiting for me. You're in my reach, but I have to have a little extra push to get close to you. Are you flirting with me? You want me to come get you, but you won't fall into my lap. You want me to show you that I want you. You want me to be responsible and proactive. Okay, you, I'm coming.
Welcome back. Let's take a few final comments before we go. Let me see what we have here. Roswell said, okay, that was you, David, selling AS Bryden. I don't think he was the one selling the million. Selling Bryden. Sorry, not CPJ. Learn, Grow, Invest says, makes me wonder what might happen for some of the tech companies in terms of acquisitions. And they add, especially as some companies struggling with cash and high finance costs, indeed presents an opportunity for those who do have the cash. Note as well that CPJ recently launched their venture capital fund, and I recently heard within the past couple of days of another VC fund launching very soon in Jamaica. Javon wants to know what's the rate of the AS Bryden dividend in USD as it's quoted on TTD on JSE. I'd have to look that up, Javon, and I'm on my phone, so it's kind of hard for me to look stuff up tonight. All right, so that is our show. Roswell said it's nice to advertise insurance, but when it's time to pay out, how quick are they to pay when clients need assistance? Always the issue with insurance. Okay, so that's our show for this evening. Want to thank Agriculture Minister Floyd Green for joining us, as well as development economist Chris Stokes. They did a great job. David Rose, as usual, our analyst in the analyst segment. Make sure that you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a friend so that everybody can all get this money together. You know our motto, you know our goal. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I do have an announcement. We have a new free download available. It is called the Money Dictionary. If you had previously downloaded Financial Terms Made Simple, it's been rebranded and renamed as the Money Dictionary. And it is a list of 63 common money terms, common finance terms, explained in a very, very simple way. So these are my definitions. I just, pull it out of my head, did some research as well, just to make sure everything was solid and legit. But it's the Money Dictionary. It's a free resource that you can download today at themoneydictionary.com. Just go to themoneydictionary.com, enter your email, you get that free download. So download that today. The Money Dictionary by Money Media, Money Mission, and me, Kalila Reynolds, of course. What else do I have to say? Oh, we dropped our new video on VM last night. So if you haven't watched that yet, I spoke with Rez Burchinson from VM about a range of topics, including VM's recent financial performance. You might have seen their 2023 annual report come out. The numbers weren't looking so great. Their most recent quarterly report in 2024, we started to see a change, an uptick in that. Is that sustainable? I asked Rez all about it, asking him about the economy as well. This interview, by the way, was done before Beryl, so I didn't get to ask about that, but a lot of interesting facts, a very interesting conversation with Rez Burchinson from VM. So you can check that out right after this video here on the YouTube channel. It's called VM. Can't remember what exactly it's called, but you'll see it there. You'll see it there on the channel, our interview with VM. So make sure that you check that out, giving some important insights into the company's financial performance and other things. Want to remind you as well to turn on the post notifications here on YouTube so that you can be the first to see everything when it drops. And if you have those on already, then you don't know about the VM interview. This is not news to you. You already know VM records massive gains. Yes, you already knew about it because you had your post notifications turned on, and you want to subscribe to the newsletter. Again, nothing that I've said just now would have been news to you if you're up to date on the newsletter. You would have seen the Money Dictionary already. You would have seen VM already. Everything goes out first to our newsletter subscribers. Follow across all social media platforms at Kalila Ray on Instagram, Twitter. Where else are we? TikTok. Big on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, all platforms. And that is my only handle. So anything else that you see with an extra I or extra Y, that ain't me. And if somebody is sliding in them DMs trying to get you to invest with them, that is not me. That is a scammer. Please report that page. Now, if you want to connect with our analyst this week, just check the description box below for David's contact information. And also you can visit the website. Oh, my eyes look tired. I tell you, it's been a week. Go to the website, KalilaReynolds.com, for money news you can use. You can watch our videos. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify, on Google Podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, whatever podcast platform you use. If you're driving and you just want to listen to the show rather than watch it, you can do that on any podcast, all major podcast platforms. And you can also read episode transcripts and summaries on the website at KalilaReynolds.com. Yeah. So that's our show for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining. Thank you for participating. This show is what it is because of you, and I appreciate your presence I will see you again next week. Until then, I'm Kalila Reynolds. Have a great evening.
Let's get this money.